This is a fork bomb. This piece of code will crash your computer in about 2 seconds flat and will render it completely inoperable. And the only way to get it back is to reboot.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Now, experienced sysadmins, they might have a better way, but a reboot is typically the safest choice. Now, while flashy stuff like this may be interesting, on this channel, we like to focus on what will actually get you hired. And if you're new here, my name is Ryan from Elevate Cyber, and I'm a cybersecurity professional with over a decade of experience from multiple Fortune 500 companies to the US government. And over the past 4.5 years, I've successfully mentored dozens of students to break into this field as well. And in this video, I'm gonna give you a behind the scenes look at my network pen test workshop, where I'll be teaching you Linux from the ground up. Now, this was a live training that I ran with my VIP clients that are landing cybersecurity jobs in only about 6 months. And the best part of this training is that it is very interactive. So if you're targeting a career in cybersecurity, I highly encourage you to pause the video every time I ask a question and just to quiz yourself to see, can you accurately answer it? That way you can gauge if your Linux knowledge is at a strong enough level for you to land a cybersecurity job right now. And while this information in the training might start off simple, I gotta warn you, it definitely ramps up as we go through. So if you're more veteran, you're definitely gonna wanna watch until the end regardless and complete the full quiz. Right now, I'm in the command line. And when I say command line, I just mean the terminal in Linux. So remember in the previous webinar, we set this up. So if I just click here, now I have a terminal. And you see the blinking cursor. That means it's waiting on you to type something, essentially. So I am currently inside of a folder because you can navigate through the file system on the command line. So if I want to know where I'm located, you can kind of see it here. This squiggly line means I'm in my home directory. I can also type pwd and it'll tell me I'm in home Cali. So the squiggly line is a shortcut, meaning /home/your user. Your user's home directory, basically. If I want to see what is in this folder, I can type ls, and then that will show me all the files and folders. Now, some of these I created myself, so your output will look a little bit different than mine. But I can also cd to change directory. Let's go to the root of the file system. So I just type /. This would be like being in the C drive in Windows. This is like the very root of the file system. So if I type ls there, you'll see most of the same stuff here. This is the Linux file system here. So if we just go into a directory like /temp and type ls, we have some stuff here, but we should be able to write to this folder, I think. So if I wanted to create a file, I'll show you guys how to do it with nano. So I could just type nano and then whatever I want to name the file, you could call it test.txt. And now I can just start typing. Type some code or something. And then to save it, you can see all the menu options here at the bottom. I can do, actually this arrow here is the control key. So control X to exit. Let's see. I think someone is unmuted here. There we go. Oh yeah, but control X to exit, and then Y for yes to save it. So now we see that file is there. If I want to read the contents of the file, I could use the cat command. So cat text.txt. And we see it here. This is a test. So that's the content. So these are some of the most basic commands that you'll run. Let's see what else. And if I want to edit this file now that it exists, we just type nano.txt. And yeah, we can make whatever edit we want to at this point. So now if I look at the contents of it, and if you see like how I'm typing a little bit faster, like that, like you see that, like what I'm doing is I'm pressing the tab key. This is tab autocomplete. So anytime I type commands, I'm constantly hitting the tab key, and that way I don't have to type every little thing because it's auto-completing it for me. You'll start to figure out like what stuff you can tab autocomplete and what you can't. But yeah, you want to make use of this feature, get in the habit.
of auto completing stuff because it'll make you be able to type faster. So also, if you want to go to a previous command, you can hit the up arrow. If you want to see like the full list of all the commands that you ran, you could type history and I'll show you. So like I could take any of these and I can rerun it to see how they're all numbered. So like, I don't know, if I wanted to like rerun this command, cd op windows, I could like copy paste it or see how there's like number 65 and type exclamation point 65 and it'll run that command. So now you see it switched me into that directory. If I want to go back to the directory that I was just in, cd and then this hyphen character, and now I'm back in temp. So that's a little shortcut for you. I can clear the screen with Control L. Also, you could just type clear if you want as well. Which, it doesn't actually clear the screen, it just kind of hides the stuff. So you could like scroll up usually. I don't know why it's not doing. Oh, clear, maybe I can't. But if I type Control L, then I can scroll up and it's back. Yeah. The other thing that is going to happen a lot, let's go over some basic error messages that you're going to see a lot, because there's a certain list of them that, you'll get quite often. And by the way, see how I'm in /temp right now? This is just to make it very clear, this is just a folder on my system. So if I open like the graphical view and I go to file system, you can see now I'm at the root of the file system. There's a temp folder, and that's where I'm located. But I'm located there in the command line. So you can see there's this text file. I can open it in like a graphical editor. But you need to know how to use a command line text editor. And the reason for that is most of what we do is command line access, and we don't always necessarily have access to a graphical interface. So that's why we get practice using the command line tools to like edit files and things like that and pretty much be able to do everything, because Nano is typically installed by default on Linux systems, so you can almost always use it. VI is another one, which is like Vim and VI. That's what I would prefer. You can use that to edit the file as well. So I could come in here. If I make some kind of edit to it, I could escape. Basically, the way that I inserted, see how it says insert at the bottom? I press the I key to get into that. Then I can edit it however I want. And then once I'm done editing the file, all right, I press escape to get out of insert mode. I'm going to undo that, so I'm going to press U. But yeah, you just press escape, and that will get you out of insert mode. Then you press : W for save, Q for quit, enter. And now it made the edit to the file. You don't have to use Vim or anything. I just have been using it for a very long time. You can totally use Nano for everything. It's fine. Another cool thing you can do, little trick, is you can hit Control R. You can do like a search. You can start searching for commands. So I don't know, maybe if we look for Nmap, I'm going to type Nmap. And you can kind of scroll through and look for stuff. This was like my most recent Nmap command. You can look for FTPC. I'm just going to start typing my command. SSH. Yeah, you can see it here. So yeah, I just press Control R to get into that and just start typing your command. And it's going to look through your history to try to find that. So that can be pretty helpful if you forgot a command, you don't feel like digging through your notes. All right, so now let's dive into some of the basic common error messages that you're going to get a lot, why it's erroring, and then also how we can fix this, okay? So I'm going to open a new terminal, and I'm going to type, let's see here. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. I'm just going to launch a new instance. or what is it? Control. Okay, I'm just going to exit this out and then relaunch this. And now I'm going to type cat test.txt again. But I got an error and it says test.txt, no such file or directory. Which editor in Linux is better, Nano or VI? Neither. They're all just tools to edit files. So, yeah, it's kind of like what's better, iPhone or Android. Like everyone will have their opinion on that, but like at the end of the day, it's like it serves the same purpose. So it's kind of like that. You're not in the temp folder. You're not in the right place. Okay, let me ask you this then. Would there be a way to read the contents of this file even without being in the temp folder? What if I didn't want to change directories or I wasn't able to or something, but I wanted to read this file? Type the full path. Yep. Yeah, so what Ivan said there, yeah, and Kevin as well, you need to write the full path. So that gets into absolute versus relative paths. This is like a very important concept in, I mean, every operating system really, it exists. So when I type cat test.txt, this is what's known as a relative path. It's like when you just type the file name, it's assuming that in the folder that you're currently located in, there's a file called test.txt, and that's what you want to read the contents of. So currently we're in this, which is the home directory, right? So it's /home/Kali. So what it's doing when you type cat.test.txt here is it's looking in that folder for a file called test.txt, and it's not seeing it. So then you just get no such file or directory. So write full path. Well, actually not. Let's see. Let me think about this here. I could not necessarily. I could technically write a relative path to get here. Now let me show you guys this. It's not very practical, but technically I don't need a full path to the file. So I could just type, well, let me show you basic navigation, right? So right now I said I'm in /home/Kali. If I type cd ... that'll bring me back one directory. Right now I'm in home. Just to illustrate that. That way you know what the two dots mean, right? So I could provide a relative path to this file. So I could say cat go back one directory because we're in home Kali, right? So now we're in /home. I could say go back again. Now we're in / and I can say go into temp, and there's a file there called test.txt. And now we see that we are able to read the content of it. This is a relative path still. So not like a full path, not an absolute path, but it knows how to get there based on this. And this is important to know for some vulnerability classes like local file inclusion or what's it called, path traversal. So you'll actually write payloads kind of similar to this. But yeah, this is a relative path here because it's relative to being in home/Kali. We're telling it, hey, go back 2 folders. There's a temp folder, and in that temp folder is a file called test.txt. And that's what we want to read the contents of. But yeah, I mean, we could, and the most common way to do this would be provide an absolute path. So we could say /temp /test.txt. The reason this is a absolute path is we're starting from the root of the file system. That's what the leading / means. So I'll show you the Windows equivalent of this as well. That is one of the most common errors that you're going to get at the command line. And another very common error that you're going to get is, oh man, there was one that I had in mind. Let me see if it'll come back to me. This is another one as well. Is permission denied, which this one is a little bit more straightforward. It just means that you don't have the privileges to do whatever you're trying to do. So you can try to type sudo in front of that, which is it's short for a super user do. So it's gonna run it as root if you have access to do that, which the Kali account does by default. So I can try to prepend sudo. Now I have to type my sudo password, which is just the password they use to log in to Kali. And that's what you Yeah, you get the output of it. Now, you might have noticed that when I was typing my password, you didn't see any kind of prompt. Like you didn't see like, like in Windows where it shows you like just a bunch of dots to hide your password. You didn't see anything. It was like I wasn't typing anything. Well, that's how Linux works. And that really throws off a lot of people when they first start playing around with Linux, is if you type in like a password or something, it won't show you anything. So you might think, like, if you come from a Windows world or a Mac or something, you might think that like nothing's happening, but actually it is registering your key presses. It's just not showing you anything. So you just type your password and just hit enter. And if you type it correctly, then it should work. Let me see here. Let me pull up that video real quick. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting. I know there's another really key error. Maybe if you guys can think of another error as well that I might be overlooking, just let me know. Oh yeah, I know exactly what it was that I was going to show you. So here's another very common one. So let's say we want to run Kerberoot, right? Kerberoot is like, it's a tool that we used in the Active Directory workshop, but it's not too important to understand what the purpose of it is or anything. Just know that it is like a tool that we commonly use for attacks and stuff. So I typed it because I was trying to run it. Like, let's say I try to run it with like the help menu, pull up the help menu or something. Get attack H. And we get command not found. Why would this happen? I know for a fact, by the way, just to give you, oops, I did misspell it there. So that could be one reason you'd get it. But let's say you type it correctly, and like I'll tell you guys, I know for a fact that this is installed on my machine. Why might I get this error? Command not found. Okay, your command path. Okay, then why is it like, let's say if I wanted to run nmap, why is it that I don't need it? Like I'm in the home Kali, right? Why is it that I can just type nmap then? And it knows like like this is the help menu for nmap. Why is it that I can type nmap but I can't type Kerberoot, even though they're both installed on my machine? Well, I gave it another detail, right? I gave it like tac H for help. Still doesn't work. Does anyone have any ideas? Yeah, I'm in Kali or no, I'm in /home/Kali, as you see here. Which, yeah, that's true. Kerberoot's not located here, but neither is nmap, but I can run nmap. Right, I can run nmap. I can run like SMB client. And none of these are in /home/Kali either. It's installed already, Omi. Kerberoot is installed. Yeah, this is like a pretty common error. This gets a lot of people, so the fact that a lot of people don't know is actually a good thing. Echo your current path. Okay, I like the lines along which Jimmy is thinking. So let's echo path. I mean, it's not in the path for commands. This is not system variables. Yes, so path. Yeah, exactly. Those of you that were pointing me along the lines of your path, that is exactly why. So if you see here, there's when you ever see a $sign and like a bunch of uppercase characters, this is what's known as an environment variable. These are basically special variables that they might store some information that with every command the command can choose to use those environment variables. Well, anytime you run a command, it's checking a special environment variable called your path variable. And all the path variable is a bunch of file locations that are delimited by colon. And this is the folders that it's going to look for whatever you type to see if it's like a valid file, essentially. And it actually is going to search from left to right. So it's going to search in this exact order, which actually leads to a potential privilege escalation attack called path injection. So I'll go into that after I explain like the core concept. But the very first place it's going to look is here. So like, for example, there's a command that I can type for like nmap and stuff. I can say which nmap, and it'll tell me where it found it. So it actually found it in user bin nmap. So the very first thing that's going to happen is it's going to look in home kali.local bin. It's not going to find nmap there. So then it's going to check the next one, user local sbin, not going to find it there. Going to check here, not going to find it. Check here, not find it. Not find it. Won't find it, won't find it, won't find it. Where is it? User bin. Right here. This is where it will find it. Once it gets to this check, it will find nmap, so then it runs it. And so since it already found it and ran it, it won't even check these. So that's all a command is. All a command is a file that is executable that is located in your path. So yeah, so for example, if I just create something completely random, so we'll just write a file to one of these. Let's create a file called, back to like the temp directory or something. And yeah, let's just create a completely random file. We'll call it not a command. And we will, maybe we'll call it, hang on. Not a real command. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll just have it do something. Echo real command. So something like that. Just going to display that to the screen. So the first thing I need to do is make it executable. This is also a common thing that you guys should know how to do, right? So like I can't run this. I get permission denied because it's not executable. So if I want to see extended permissions on files, I can do ls -la. And now you can see the permissions here. This is how you read it. Let me walk you guys through it, right? So you see two things here. This is the user and this is the group. So if I type ID, the Kali user is the name of the Kali user is Kali, and the group that it's in is also called Kali. So you can see that this file is owned by the user Kali and it's owned by the group Kali, which makes sense because I created it as the Kali user. Which, by the way, this is also, a common mistake I see someone make in the group where they were typing sudo before every command, because when they type sudo, it just works, because you're running it with elevated permissions. But if I create a file with like Vim or Nano or something like that, and I put sudo in front of it, watch what happens. So I'll just type some random stuff. Doesn't really matter what the contents are. But if I look at the permissions on this file, you can see it's owned by root and the root user and the root group. Now, by default, it's readable by everyone, so I can still read this as the Kali user, but I wouldn't be able to like write to it. So if I wanted to edit that file and I didn't type sudo, then I wouldn't be able to. See, it says read only because I don't have permissions to write to this file. So it won't let me. So just, be aware of that. Whatever user or effective user run a command as, that will be, like if you create a file or something, it'll be created by that user. So if you type sudo in front of your command to create a file or something, then that file will be owned by root. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Well, let me go ahead and remove that. So now, for example, if I want to delete the file, I actually have to type sudo first, because otherwise I'm not going to have access to delete it. See, cannot remove, operation not permitted. So if I want to rerun the previous command with sudo, here's a little shortcut. You can type sudo bang bang. And now it prepends sudo, press enter, and now it's deleted. So, whereas this one down here, right, this test.txt, because it was just created by my Kali user, I don't need sudo to delete it or anything. I just type rm test.txt and now it's gone. But yeah, for this one, we can't run it until we make it executable. So a very common task is to change those permissions. So just to walk you through the permissions really quick, like I said, owned by user Kali and group Kali. So the first, we'll go with the last three. The last three are the permissions for everyone else, everyone that's not the Kali user and not in the Kali group. These work in chunks of 3. So there's read, there's write, and there's execute. So write is W and X is execute. So if you see the hyphen here, that means no permission. So like every basic user here only has read access. They cannot write to the file. They cannot execute the file. They can only read the contents of it. And this middle 3 here, this is the permissions for the group. So anyone in the Kali group, not the Kali user, but like everyone just like in the Kali group, also has read access, not write access, or execute access. And then the last 3 correspond to the file owner. So in this case, Kali, the Kali user. The Kali user has, actually, these are the last 3 here, read and write permissions, but not execute permissions. So no one has execute. That's why I can't execute this like as if it were a command. Because all a command is in Linux is a file that is executable. That's it. And then this last one here will denote whether it's a file or a directory. So if you see a D here, that means it's a directory or a folder, essentially. If you don't see anything, then that means it's a file. So this is a file, so that's why you just have the hyphen there. So we can modify these permissions, but we need to use a command called chmod to do that. So I can say sudo chmod will require elevated privileges, I believe. And a shorthand is we can do +X to make it executable. We can also use different numbers that correspond to different stuff as well, different permissions. So like if I showcase that real quick, there's like eventually you start to learn what numbers correspond to what, but if you guys are starting out, you can look up like Linux permissions calculator. Linux permission calculator. There's usually some good ones online. So you can say like, what permissions do you want? I want the owner to have read, write, execute, and then the group to have read, write, and then everyone else just to have read. Then that would correspond to 764. Or read, execute. Here's a pretty common set, right? Owner has full privileges, group has read, execute, and everyone else has read, execute, 755. This is what it would look like from the Linux, like when you do the ls-la command. But just to showcase this real quick, I did +X, which is a shorthand for one of these codes. We look, I think everyone has execute. Yeah. Actually, this is 755. So if I change it to something else, just to showcase to you guys, so chmod, we can do like chmod 600, which would be very different permissions. So if we do that, we can see now it's not executable anymore. And 600 is just read write for file owner. No one else has any permissions at all. This is what you commonly see for SSH keys because you don't want any random person to be able to read your SSH key. But yeah, we can fix this if we go here and type 755. And that's going to correspond to the permissions that you guys just saw. So now if I check it, read, write, execute, read, execute, read, execute. So now because it's like that, we can run it by running it directly. But I can't just type it, excuse me, I can't just type it like it's a command. You get command not found. Because it's not going to check in your current directory when you type it. It's actually checking in the path. So remember those folders that I was showing you guys a second ago? These are the only folders it's going to check in. And it looked in every single one of these, and it didn't find not a real command in any of them. So it said command not found. Does that make sense of why you get that error? Because it checks the entire path, like every folder in this path, and this doesn't exist in any of these, so it doesn't know where to find it. So it says command not found. So if you want it to be accessible from anywhere without typing the path, then you have to add it to the path. So you have to add it to one of these folders. So in order to do that, whatever one we want to add it to, we should be able to. Well, I can just add it to this first one here. So let's see here. Right now, we have this here. I can do MV to move the file. So I can say move this file into, I could type /home/Cali, or I could just type the squiggly key, local bin. Okay, see it's not there anymore. And if I look at that folder, hopefully there's not too many things in there. Okay, there's not too much stuff, but we should see it. Not real command. Yep, right here. So now let's try this again. So not real command. And we still get command not found. Oh, not a real command. So that's another thing. Make sure you're not typoing it. Very common mistake. You see, I made that even here. And in Kali Linux, the nice thing is you'll know it's like in the path because it'll change the color. See, when I had it typoed, it was white. And then when I type it correctly, it turned blue. That means it's probably going to work. Let's try to run it. And it executes. And we're in the temp directory now, so we can run this from anywhere because it's now in the path. So I can actually move this back because I'm going to show you guys something else real quick. So I can say move, what is it? Local bin. This one might be a bit of a tricky question, but it's very relevant for this. It's another common issue that you might encounter. Oh, by the way, this command here, obviously the move command we saw just a second ago. It opens the file. No, we didn't open anything. Yeah, we moved the file, but what is this? Okay, let me be more specific here. Why did I put a dot at the end? Obviously, we're moving the not a real command file, but why did I put dot? And just to give you guys a hint, this goes back to a concept that we mentioned earlier in this call. Yep, exactly what Jimmy said. Current directory. So this is a relative path that I put as a shortcut. Now I could have typed the full path out. I could have typed /temp, but I chose to just do the relative path. So relative path is you can just do dot for current directory. So now if I look in this directory, we can see that this file is back. Now let's say instead of just moving this file to the path, we said, hey, we want to create a new folder and add that to the path. So let's say I would never actually do this, but let's say that we wanted to add /temp to our path. So now, yeah, I can move the file there. So not a real command, dot once again. Now it's here. Now, obviously, this new path is not in our system path. By system path, I mean one of these folders, right? So, and let me just get out of this directory so it's very clear. Right now I'm in the root of the file system. I can't type not a real command. It's not going to work because /home/Cali/new path is not in our system path. So let's add it to our system path. That's something we can do. So to add it to the system path is a very common command that you should know. We have to export. The way you modify a environment variable is with the export command. So you can do export path. And let's see if I can type this correctly on the first go. So we can add it to the beginning or we can add it to the end. Let's add it to the end. So if we want to do that, I believe we can do $path and then colon and then our folder. So home, Cali, new path. And if I typed everything correctly, it should have worked. Otherwise, yeah, I might break something. Let's see here. Not valid in this context. Let me make sure I'm not typoing it. See, this is one of those things where the syntax is like, it really matters. So sometimes I am a little bit fuzzy on this. But it's a very easy thing to Google for or Chat GPT for, whatever you guys prefer. Let's see here. Path. And then let's do let me just check my notes real quick so I can quickly identify my typo here. Ah, yeah, I see. So this is a Linux thing. This is just something I glazed over. And it's actually good that I made this mistake. When you set a variable in Linux, you can't have the dollar sign. The dollar sign is used when you are using the variable. So let me just show you like what I mean by that. We can create just a random variable in Linux, like not an environment variable, but just like a standard variable. So like my variable equals 1, 2, 3, right? So I can read the contents of this variable, but when I declare it, or like, when I call the variable, I have to put the dollar sign, right? So notice how when I set the variable, I don't have the dollar sign. When I use the variable, I need the dollar sign. So like, if I try to set this variable but had like a dollar sign, it's gonna try to like run it and it's gonna say like command not found. So it does matter. So every time you declare a variable, no dollar sign. When you use it, you put the dollar sign. This is one of those little tricky things that easy to forget. But so yeah, here with the export command, I would want to not the dollar sign when I'm setting it, but then when I'm using it, you would have it. So now there's no error. And let's see if it works. So let's just try to type not a real command. And it works. Because if we check our path, now we can see at the end, because that's why I put the dollar sign path first. So it's going to execute it essentially. See, as we saw here, like when we were playing around with that, whenever you put the dollar sign, what it does is it executes the command in that variable. So it executes is like command expansion or whatever. So it executes echo path, and inside, so that dollar sign path contains this whole string up to here, and then we append this part. So that's why we got our path now at the end. But yeah, when we type not a real command, it searches all these folders, and then when it gets to the end, home Kali new path, it finds it, so it runs it. And that is why it works now. But here's a common pitfall, right? I can type this all day here, no problem. It's going to run. But if I open a new window and I type it, command not found. So, because yeah, now let's check, right? Let's check it again, echo path. And what we see is now we don't even see /home/Kali/new path anymore. It's gone. System variable file. What file is that? The system variable file. Global. You have to be in the folder where the file. Yeah, but we don't want to have to do that. That's the point. We want to be able to just type not a real command and it runs it. We don't want to have to like figure out like where we downloaded it and then go there and run it. We want it to be like in our path. echo shell. So we're running Z shell. So I like how, Kevin, he did tell me to run echo shell. That is helpful to know because you want to know what shell is being used. So it's ZSH. So since Kali uses ZSH, we need to edit a file in our home directory called ZSH RC. So this contains all of the information for our ZSH shell, including like the prompt and like the style of it and the colors and everything. It's all here. So every time we spawn a new shell, this file gets loaded. So all these commands get run every time I spawn like a new shell. So I spawned a new shell there. It went to this file and it executed. It ran all the commands in there. And that's why my terminal looks and behaves the way it does. It's because of what's in this file. So this is also why we have aliases, right? See, we got LL. So like I can just type LL and it's a shortcut for LS minus L. Or LA would be a shortcut for LS minus A because of this line here. So basically whatever's in here will be persistent. So see how there's some export path commands? I believe I added these manually. I definitely did. So if we wanted this one to persist, we could just add it as a line at the bottom here. So export path equals, and you can have the quotes or not have the quotes, I guess, as you can see here. But if we want to add it to the end, just like we did before, we can do this. Kali new path. Now this one is going to run at the end. So now let's try to spawn a new window and then type not a real command. And now it works. Now it's persistent. Why that worked? Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is like really like core fundamental stuff to know. Let's see here. Now, one thing that you might see, show you this. Why is it in this terminal it doesn't work? Can anyone tell me? Doesn't work. If I go over here, it works. But here it doesn't. Does anyone know why? Let's see what you guys say. No, we did. I'll show you. See? It's right there. Export path, $ path, home Kali new path. So no, we edited it. Does anyone know why doesn't it work? The reason that this doesn't work in this terminal but works in all the other terminals is because we edited the ZSH file in this terminal. Remember what I told you guys earlier. Whenever I launch a new terminal, ZSHRC gets executed, right? So what does that mean? It read that file and it executed all the commands in there. So this new window is up to date and this one is not. Because even though we edited the file, we didn't actually run the file. Whereas, when you launch a new terminal, it will run the file automatically because that's what gets loaded when you open the new terminal. But here we never actually we'd have to manually execute that file for the changes to take effect. So there's a command that we can use to do that. It's called the source command. So we could say source home directory ZSHRC. And now that basically what it does is it executes that file. So now you see it turn blue here. Now we can run it. So just keep that in mind. If you're editing like the ZSHRC file or bash RC file, you make changes and you want it to apply to that session, you have to source the file for it to execute it. Yeah, the changes were saved in the file, but that file wasn't executed in this terminal session. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. What else do I want to cover? Yeah, that's a pretty big one. is environment variables, and that's something that exists on Windows as well. We'll take a look at that. Oh yeah, I want to show you guys, now that you understand the path and how it works, there's a very common privilege escalation technique, and we'll probably look at it more during the privilege escalation webinar, but it's called path hijacking. Okay, so if I type which, by the way, you can type which like any command, it'll tell you like where that's located. So if we do like which nmap, we can see user bin nmap. Remember, this one was here, right? So it's like halfway through. So remember what I told you guys, it checks left to right. So if any of these paths, if any of these folders are writable before that, we can hijack the nmap binary, which is helpful. This is helpful later for privilege escalation. You guys will see down the line, but this is how we would do it, right? So we can definitely write to home Cali local bin. This is the very first one it checks. So let's make a fake nmap command, right? Let's do that real quick. So I'll just go back in temp, and then I'm just going to call it nmap. And it's just going to say, this is a fake version of nmap. Something like that, right? And of course, we need to make it executable. And so just run it manually, make sure it works. Yep. So, okay, it works. Let's do some path hijacking, right? So I am going to move this nmap binary, the fake one that we created, into home Cali local bin. So now let's try to just type nmap, and let's see, it went there. Ran that one. Let's see. Might need to do this in a new terminal. I don't think so though. Let's check Cali. Oops. Local bin. Let's see if we can find that. Okay, right there. Yeah, there we go. I just had to open a new terminal for it to apply. But you can see now, every time I try to run nmap, I can't run nmap. It's running the fake version. And the reason for that is, like I was telling you guys, with the path, it's going to check from left to right. So in this case, it checks this first one, which is before the real nmap. And because it finds it here, it just runs that. So this is called path hijacking. We hijack the search order of the path, and we found a place where we have write permissions, and we just wrote our own. So obviously, if we replaced it with some malicious code or something like that, then we could take control of like a command. We could hijack a command and get it to do something like malicious or something. Especially, this is what, so just to give you a preview on the privilege escalation, like especially if like it's like a automated task or something that's ran as like a super user, like the root account, and we hijack the path, then we could get potentially get permissions of the root user if we have it run like some kind of privileged action. But yeah, you'll see that more later on. But let's go ahead and remove that. And now it should work again. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that is path hijacking.
So there you have it. How'd you do? Is your Linux knowledge at a good enough level yet? And if you enjoyed the training and you want to see more, I'm excited to announce that I'm currently working on creating the Elevate to Cyber Academy. It's going to be a school community that will be absolutely loaded with training videos just like this, where I'll be sharing with you absolutely everything that I learned, going from $0 to a $200,000 remote career in cybersecurity. And depending on when you're watching this video, it might actually be available already right now, so go and check the link down in the description below.